Welcome to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private.
Hello and welcome to the Recovery Cast, proudly brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private. My name is Oliver and I'm a former alcoholic and addict now in recovery. The Recovery Cast is a podcast created by people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction for people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction. This podcast is meant as a support tool for those in recovery. Everyone who participates in the podcast is in an active recovery program. We are not affiliated with any one recovery methodology and will focus on a variety of different types of recovery, including 12-step recovery programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, and other things like Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, Recovery Dharma, Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, and more. And a quick disclaimer, this podcast is intended to be informative. A podcast alone cannot support your sobriety and recovery, so we suggest it only as one component of a daily recovery routine. For more information on what recovery is, please go to www.rehab.melbourne. Now, Alexis, how are you going today?
I am plodding along.
I hear that you overdid it at the gym this morning.
Yeah, I smashed it out at the gym today. I have to deal with some really uncomfortable emotions that I'm sitting in right now, which were honestly like a direct result of my behaviour and my actions over the last few days. And I didn't know what else to do with myself. I did a meeting online early this morning, a 7 a.m. JFT meeting.
Nice.
And then I went straight to the gym for 45 minutes. And, you know, like something that I've noticed is that emotional discomfort is a great motivator. I lifted heavier, I worked out harder, I put a lot more effort in, and then came home and had a little nap before we started recording. So
that's really constructive and a good way. I think it's a healthier way than going down to the bottle shop or whatever, you know.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
So that got me thinking. Yeah. That got me thinking about what we're going to talk about today, which is ways to deal with our feelings constructively and ways to deal with cravings or the sort of obsession to use or act out in a constructive and healthy way. But first, we are going to do the reading, which is for the 5th of December, isn't it?
Yes, the 5th of December, Alcoholics Anonymous Daily Reflections. So today's reading is on a new state of consciousness. He has been granted a gift which amounts to a new state of consciousness and being. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 107. Many of us in Alcoholics Anonymous puzzle over what is a spiritual awakening. I tended to look for a miracle, something dramatic and earth-shattering. But what usually happens is that a sense of well-being, a feeling of peace, transforms us into a new level of awareness. That's what happened to me. My insanity and inner turmoil disappeared and I entered into a new dimension of hope, love, and peace. I think the degree to which I continue to experience this new dimension is in direct proportion to the sincerity, depth, and devotion with which I practice the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Nice. I like that one.
Yeah, I do as well. I can relate to it. Definitely. When I heard about the spiritual awakening, I've shared on this in meetings before as well. I anticipated some sort of, like spiritual guru kind of enlightenment where I would be holier and
float down the
filled
street
with light and love and it would be a profound moment that I would never forget. And for me, it didn't quite work out like that. It my awakening happened in stages, just as my surrender did. It was something that was, humbling and loving, you know. But it also, like, yeah, I guess the level of awareness, like leveling up like that, sometimes it is painful. Like sometimes it is painful to become, you know.
We have to confront something that is uncomfortable and take responsibility for it, perhaps, to break through to that next level. And I think, look, you know, that summarizes my experience with addiction. I think that's what it's about getting treatment. Is the first one is being like, you know, we're uncomfortable with our addiction, so we have to get treatment, and we have to accept that and surrender to it and make that first step. So whether that is, you know, you can go to a rehab, you can, you know, it doesn't matter really particularly how you do it, as long as you do it. And then, you know, the next thing is that we have to learn how to begin to just learn to live without the use of drugs, alcohol, or the addictive behaviours, and we have to learn how to do all the things that we probably didn't do for a long time, all that adulting stuff, and we have to learn how to moderate our behaviours and deal with those things. So there's so many things that we sort of have to learn when we're going through that treatment and going through that profound change. And the 12 steps, I mean, it works if you work it. That's what they say, and that's what it says in the reading. The degree to which I continue to experience this new dimension is in direct proportion to the sincerity, depth, and devotion to which I practice the 12 steps. So what he's saying, or what they are saying, is the harder you throw yourself into this program, this 12-step program, the more rewards you get. And that has been my experience. But, you know, the huge disclaimer is that at Hills and Ranges Private, and I think in general in recovery, that the 12 steps are but one way to deal with treating addiction. And I think for me, you know, that's what's worked for me. That's probably what's worked for you. But like you said, you know, you did a meeting this morning, but you didn't just do a meeting. You also went to the gym and absolutely, you know, did a really good workout, and you started to feel better, and you got that anger and those feelings out in a healthy way, in a constructive way.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's...
Yeah.
Sorry, go.
No, you... I mean, you know, like that's a really, really positive, how do I articulate this? A way of dealing with your feelings. It's a good response. It shows that you're in recovery and that you are learning how to do it. Because I don't know about you, but if I had that experience when I was using, I would probably have locked myself in the shed and used for a day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, if I can be candid like that, the way I felt this morning, the way I felt last night before I went to bed as well, I've used on those emotions 1,000 times in the past. I've used those feelings and not being able to sit in them within myself as an excuse and a justification and a rationalization so many times before, you know, and I don't know, I didn't know what else to do today, and so...
And that's what I
kind of sitting here, like, while, like, you know, and like with hearing you just say like that is me doing recovery. It's like, oh yeah, that is me doing recovery, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, wait, okay, I did good. Totally.
And that's what I ask people when I do hospitals and institution presentations for NA, or when I speak to people who are in that phase where they're dealing with addiction and they're making the step into recovery. Maybe they're in treatment or detoxing or whatever. And I say, what are you going to do different? What are you going to do different this time? That's what I ask them. And if they don't have an answer to that, then I really feel quite sad, because I think what you need to do, or what is really important, and what Hills and Ranges Private definitely teaches you, is what you're going to do different. You have to change something, otherwise nothing will change. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Is we're going to talk about ways to deal with our feelings constructively, ways to deal with those urges, those cravings, and that obsession. Perhaps we're in obsession of we're thinking about using. We can't sit with ourselves. There's more than just 12-step stuff available to you. And I think what you've demonstrated is that you've done 12-step, and then you also did some self-care. You did exercise, and you got out of yourself in that way.
Yeah.
So what other things, I mean, you exercise, you did something on the weekend that I thought was really cool.
I went horse riding with a friend of mine. She owns a couple of horses and has them out in Somerville of Victoria, which is in it's near Cannons Creek. If you are a Victorian, you might know. Like, I'm not familiar with that area, but if you're not, sorry, I can't help you with any other navigation. But it's a really beautiful area.
Yeah.
Really pretty, like, bushland. So we went for a nice horse ride, and I ended up terrified at one point because the horse I was riding, we got to a particular point on the trail where he's used to cantering, and he just took off. My second time of being on a horse. Like, oh God. Yeah, my friend laughed though. She was like, the look of fear on your face was priceless.
Nice. And what I want to ask you is, while you were at the wheel of this horse that wanted to canter, were you thinking about resentments and thinking about anger?
No.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
Not at all. I was just trying to breathe and not like fall.
Yep.
There
you go. And you've heard it here. That's how you do it, is you get out of yourself. And there's lots of ways to do it. We're going to talk more. We're going to let's harness this excitement about stuff that you can do to get out of yourself. And we'll talk more about it after the break.
You're listening to the Recovery Cast by Hills and Rangers Private. Now playing daily on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. For more shows, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.
All right, so we were talking about stuff that you can do to get out of yourself in a constructive way, to deal with your feelings, to deal with urges, to deal with cravings, to deal with discomfort in general. And Alexis was talking about horse riding. You really did a sort of double thing. You were in nature and you were horse riding. And I was speaking to someone at Hills and Rangers Private, and he told me about how they took the guests at Hills and Rangers Private trout fishing, and you're standing waist deep in a river fishing for trout. I mean, that's pretty serene. That's the sort of stuff that you can do. Time spent in nature, that equine therapy that's really cool. When I go to my mum's beach house, which I'm so lucky to be able to go to, because I was banned from there for years because I used to just go down there and be in addiction, and it wasn't wasn't allowed. I go there now and I spend time in nature, and there's also a paddock nearby with a couple of horses, and I go and feed them handfuls of grass, and they just spend time with them, and
they'd love that.
They do. They like it, and if you're lucky, they come close to you, and you can give them a scratch on the neck, and those nice things. I've got a list here of other stuff as well. Exercise, so you did that. Hobbies, I geek out about race cars, that's my thing. But also, I do other things as well, like I make electronic music, I make music, that's another hobby of mine, making techno, therapy and counselling. So that's actually not something I have needed to do since I got into recovery. I find that all the therapy that I need is going to meetings and speaking to a sponsor and other people who have that same lived experience, and that's more powerful
really
for
great.
me. Well, I went to psychologists and psychiatrists for years and years, since I was about 12, and I think I had this feeling of that there was nothing they could do to help me because look where I ended up. So that's just, okay. I mean, I'm not a health professional. I'm just someone in recovery. Yeah. So if you feel you need to get counselling, then go and get counselling, and awesome that you're doing it, Therapy
if
is
I can just
important.
say, I've done therapy. I've been in a trauma treatment program for over a year now, almost a year and a half, and
Wow.
it's been one of the best things that I could have done for myself coming into recovery.
There you go.
And I've also done dialectical behavior therapy and some cognitive behavioral therapy in the past as well. I'm looking to do another round of dialectical behavior therapy. I do need to like rehash my distress tolerance and emotional regulation coping skills. And yeah, if any of our listeners are out there and are able to relate to that, like, yeah, you're not alone. I've very much needed therapy in my recovery. Without it, like, I think I wouldn't have been able to stay clean. So
Wow.
100%
Yeah.
back it all the way.
So there's, I mean, yeah, different people, different experiences, and all are valid, and we have to learn to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That that therapy is really important. And I mean, these sort of these techniques are really a part of cognitive behavioral therapy, because it's when we become aware that we are outside our sort of level of like comfort and we're feeling stressed, we have to bring ourselves back down into that feeling of ease and calm and get back to that sort of even plane of just being. And all these activities are just ways that we can do that. So I've got, as well as exercise, hobbies and therapy, counselling, I've got structure and routine. And that's something that's really, really important, because a lot of us, I think, lived very chaotic lives in our addiction, like chasing our addiction, doing that sort of behaviour. I had a routine in a way, but it was definitely not a safe one, and it was definitely not a beneficial one. It was just find drugs, get drugs, use drugs, you know. And today it's really, really different, is that I have a structure and a daily routine that I do mostly every day. And it involves, you know, getting up, making a coffee, walking the dog, tidying up around the house, and then once I'm sort of there, then I might sit down and start doing either guitar teaching or making podcast episodes for the Recovery Cast. And that's sort of my routine. You know, it varies. There are other times where I have days off and I can do my hobbies and things like that, you know, and I need to keep in mind that if I'm feeling stressed, then meditation, that's my next one. Meditation needs to be on that list as well, just for me.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
For me too.
And then I had, time spent in nature, time with animals, which we've already talked about, and then self-care. So self-care it's such a broad thing. There are so many ways to do self-care, because self-care could mean that you go and have a therapy session. Self-care could mean that you go and do a hobby. Like if I sit down and practice guitar for half an hour, that can be self-care. But also self-care could be tidying your space, you know, or making a healthy meal and sitting down and eating it. Or sometimes even self-care is just putting on your favorite series on you know, TV or Netflix or whatever, and sitting down and eating a pint of ice cream, you know, and watching that. Like if you have to do that, then good, you know, I say that's sometimes what I actually have to do. So I mean, what else do you do? What else is what does self-care mean to you, Alexis?
I like to do like girly things. Like I love giving myself facials and like hair treatments, and going and getting like my nails done. And I love having like, you know, like I'm a big advocate for bath bombs. I have a whole load of them. Yeah.
Having a bath.
The guy I'm dating actually just bought me like this box, like whole box full of them, like this really cute thing. Yeah, I know, so lucky. They're all really like schmancy ones as well. So I feel really blessed there. Been taking advantage of those.
Have a bath with candles, you know, that's self-care, big time.
Yeah. I like to read as well. I read a fair bit.
That's great.
Yeah, and the meditation is a huge one for me. I try to meditate every day. If I'm not like just doing like a little like check-in meditation, like especially if I'm feeling a certain way, like if I'm feeling some type of way, I'll usually find a meditation that's specifically in and around like focusing on shifting those feelings. If I haven't done that, at the very least, I will do a guided meditation to help me go to sleep. I tend to have some like pretty savage nightmares. And yeah, the guided meditations, I feel like I sleep a lot better when I do listen to those.
Because you bring yourself, it's whatever you're doing before you sleep, and it's all those things like nightmares. They're very, we haven't talked about using dreams on the show yet, which I want to talk about that. We'll talk about that in another episode, I reckon, because they're so funny, man.
Yeah.
I think they're so
wild.
funny. Well, I think, yeah. So that I actually always listen to audiobooks when I am going to sleep. And at the moment, I'm listening to, who is it? It's that book it's called Christine. It's about this kid that buys a car, and it's like a haunted car. And it's so funny because I just feel, I named one of my cars Christine after that, because he basically destroys his life in the pursuit of looking after and loving this car. And
yeah, doesn't the car become like obsessed with him? Doesn't want him to have like other women and things?
It tries to kill his girlfriend and stuff. And sometimes I feel like that's like, that's another thing, is that sometimes our addiction pops up in other ways. So I might spend all my money on my car for the week and then, not have money to take my girlfriend out to dinner, and I'll get in trouble. And we have to be aware of those sort of things as well, and that's, I think, that's one for another episode as well. But, what I was getting at was that even though it's such a funny book, I love that book. And it's a good movie as well, actually. But, any kind of audiobook, I love zombie apocalypse audiobooks. There's one that actually is amazing. It's called Adrian's Undead Diary, and it's by Chris Philbrook and narrated by this guy called James Foster, and he has this amazing voice. And there's about 8 or 9 books and they're only on audiobooks, and it's on YouTube. If you just look up Adrian's Undead Diary. When I was struggling to get to sleep, I'm so glad I found that. It's about this guy who survives a zombie apocalypse, and it's really, really good, actually. And some of my friends who aren't dealing with addiction, they just said, I'm struggling to get to sleep. I send them that and I say, Adrian's Undead Diary, just listen to that bad boy. And then, my friend texted me and said, I've never had such a good night's sleep with this guy's voice just sort of on my phone next to my bed. It's really good. You don't even actually have to listen to it, but that or the guided meditation thing is really, really good. There's so many good resources that are free on YouTube.
Yeah, there are.
Guided meditations of various different people.
I've created whole playlists on YouTube, as well as the Insight Timer app as well.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. And all of it's for free, other than like Wi-Fi. Like that's it, Yeah.
That's really good. And
I love listening to like the sounds of the ocean. Like I love listening to like whale sounds and shamanic drums or Tibetan flutes as well.
That's interesting.
I find that incredibly relaxing and centering. So
well, I think my challenge for I'm going to make this a thing that we do challenges on the Recovery Cast. This is the thing. My challenge today is for our listeners to do something. So I'm going to list things here. You've got to do one of these things or more if you want. Exercise, do a hobby, engage in therapy or counselling, do something that is part of your structure or routine, meditate, spend time in nature, spend time with animals, do self-care, have a bubble bath with some candles, or listen to, make or enjoy some music. Those are all these things. And that's the thing, is that we do 12-step stuff. I do 12-step stuff, you do 12-step stuff. That is probably, without that stuff, I wouldn't be here today. But without all the other things that I do as well, I also probably wouldn't be here today. So we've got to do all of it. And I think that's what they're talking about in the reading. What was the more we throw ourselves into, is the depth and devotion, sincerity with which I practice the 12 steps. Well, if you have sincerity, depth and devotion to general recovery, then it's really difficult to fail and come unstuck. If you have that sincerity, depth and devotion at the same level that you had when I decided to go into rehab, or when you decided to, I mean, it's every time you make a decision in your recovery to stay in recovery, every morning when you say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do one of those list things, I'm going to go to a meeting, I'm going to call someone, get counselling. As long as we keep having that sincerity, depth and devotion, that's what it's about for me, is I have to have those things. That honesty, that open-mindedness and that willingness to the same level that I had in the beginning. I think as long as I keep up maintaining it, then it gets easier and easier as time goes on, as I learn these healthy ways to cope, and just my brain is just changing so much to, away from what my old default state was. So yeah, there's my challenge. What do you think, Alexis?
I think that's a great challenge, and I have to agree. For a little while in my early recovery, I thought that all I needed to do was the 12-step stuff and I was going to be okay, and then I started to feel better from the 12-step stuff, and I was like, oh, well, I've got all this time all of a sudden. Like, what do I do? What else can I do with my life, and I had to start thinking, like, who am I? Like, what do I like? What do I enjoy? Now that I'm living like a healthy and loving life, or at least attempting to, doing my very best to, what are the things that I want to do that make me happy and that make me, make me feel good, and like allow me the opportunity to enjoy the day. And yeah, it's little things. It's little things, and it's fun to experiment as well. I've played around with a few different things, a few different hobbies and that, and
work out what you want to do,
find my little niche,
and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Like I didn't get clean to just go to meetings, Hell
That's
no.
right,
I got clean to I'm in recovery because I want to live a life beyond my wildest dreams. That's what they say, and it's true. It's actually true. The cornier it is, the more true it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for. I mean, we can leave it there. I reckon that's
okay.
Fire.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Recovery Cast, proudly brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private. Any questions? Just jump on www.rehab.melbourne. And in the meantime, do that challenge, exercise, hobbies, therapy, counselling, structure, routine, meditation, spend time in nature with animals, self-care, or enjoy music. Until then, have a lovely day. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Recovery Cast. For more, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.